Hello, my name is Matthew, and I finished reading Manon, Lescaut by Abbe Prevost. I'm trying to pronounce that as well as I can. And the reason I read this old French novel is because I had spent some time the other week reading short stories by the Marquis de Sade, and in the introductory material, it talked about Abbe Prevost as a literary influence, this book in particular, for the Marquis de Sade. And then I wanted to shake away all of those poisonous thoughts reading short stories by de Sade, and I read The Lady of the Camellias by Alexander Dumas, and someone helped me with my pronunciation, so I'll say Alexander Dumas Fees. Hopefully that's a little better. If you're watching, please let me know. And in this book, Manon Lescaut by Abbe Prevost is a plot point. This book is literally a part of the narrative action. And I reread this. This is the second time that I've read this book, and while I'm thinking about it, this is a different translation. I had read, I can't remember, but it was the Oxford World's Classics translation, which, at least by structure, I imagine was more faithful, because this translator, Leonard Tancock, makes a point in his translator's note to talk about stylistic choices that he made as a translator to make this book more accessible to the modern reader. And in the original French, the way that he describes it, there's two parts. Same thing in the English. There's two parts, but each part is one unbroken paragraph, and that's how the English translation is in the Oxford World Classics. And Leonard Tancock decided to break it up a little bit, and also to give helpful headers at the top of the page, sort of like titles of where we are in the action. And so he inserts chapters at natural points, puts in paragraph breaks where it would seem appropriate. And I don't know, I actually don't have my Oxford edition anymore, but it made a world of difference with just the accessibility and enjoyment of the story. For such a short book, the last time I had read it, it did feel more laborious than it really should have, at least for me. Now, it's fascinating that, to get the translation stuff out of the way, it's fascinating that this book is referenced in this book, because there are so many similarities in plot structure, narrative structure, the actual narrative. They both begin with something going on, and then a hapless individual telling the story essentially to the novelist. And in I don't want to talk about The Lady of the Camellias too much, but in this book, we have the hapless lover retelling his story, and he met this prostitute who essentially was very upfront with him, with the lifestyle that she leads, and he was jealous about it. This story, Manon Lescaut, a beautiful, beautiful young girl, is chained up at the beginning, and we have our ethereal voice, similar to Dumas Fils' story, seeing this scene in front of him, and a pitiful, sorrowful young individual looking at these young women chained up, these prostitutes that are going to be shipped off to America. And he asks, what's the story? And that's the narrative device that both of these books, novels, utilize. And then we get the retelling. Now, I'll first say, if you've read Dangerous Liaisons or The Lady of the Camellias or works of the Marquis de Sade, dirty French books, and you haven't gotten to this book, it's wonderful. And if you like those books, you will love this book. And it has a really great combination of all the different things that I like about a lot of the books that I just mentioned. And our main character, this young gentleman, is, when we first meet him, this is him retelling his story and how he, his life before meeting Manon Lescaut, and then everything that happens afterwards. This is going to be just a downward spiral from virtue into vice and criminality. And it's this young, bright, precocious, hopeful, educated, celebrated young man, really aligned and certain to have a future in the church, to join a monastery, and he reads the ancient works, and he reads the, very serious books, and he tells us he wish he would have left for his education just one day before, because on his way home one day, he sees the most beautiful woman that he's ever seen, and he finds himself, up until this point, a very chaste, level-headed, indifferent man. He finds himself in raptures. He's just love at first sight, and he's full of eruptions of passion. Runs up to this woman, something that he would never do, exclaiming that you're beautiful. And she says that she falls in raptures too, and they decide to elope, and they have to come up with a secret adventure, a secret scheme to run off in the middle of the night from the village that they're in to Paris to elope. And our character has a really stable, healthy family structure and a social network with really supportive friends. But he runs off in secret and doesn't tell anybody, and has weeks with Manon Lescaut. Now, meanwhile, they don't have very much money. They're finding themselves impecunious. And at some point, they realize, like, oh, we're running out of money. And Manon Lescaut goes, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, there's money pouring in, and she's now dressing very nicely and having luxury and jewelry. As people rush into their apartment, our main character gets dragged back to his father in his village, and we learn that Manon Lescaut has an inclination for prostitution. It's a moral boundary that she doesn't seem to find wrong. And meanwhile, our main character just is just like out of his wits. Years go by, and he finally finds himself back in a life of education and piety in Paris, and has a very well-known lecture that Manon Lescaut knows about, hears about it, and they reunite. And what happens is this moral degradation from a seemingly a virtuous young man, educated in the right direction for a prosperous career in life, and just moving that goalpost, accepting different things, getting into not only gambling, a lifestyle of gambling, but a lifestyle of cheating and gambling, starting to accept, well, maybe I don't mind so much if she kind of dips into prostitution for our lifestyle. And there's certainly highs and lows with his jealousy and their fidelity, but you just see this person kind of dipping his toe and then kind of going into the darkness with really strong moral counterpoints. His father, at some points, he has a friend and a brother, and people that are through this development constantly there to support him and veer him in the right direction. They cheat out an old man through this prostitution scheme. They end up separated in prison. He's in prison, she's in a different prison. He breaks out of prison, he murders a man, he breaks her out of prison. So it's just delving into criminality and vice and debauchery and libertinage and all of those things, and they are. I should also point out with the influences that I made. I do want to mention the fairy tale element, which is more pronounced in this book than in some of the other books that I had mentioned, because it really has a very episodic nature. For the more depraved they become, we have these moments of success and luxury, and then calamity, which as a result makes it more imperative for them to be more debaucherous, to kind of overcome and come back to where they were in society. And it's all kind of leading to this tragic end. And it's really wonderful. I had a lot of fun reading this over the course of a day or two. I don't have too many other thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was terrific and influential. I will say I've been reading, if you're still watching, I've been reading Clarissa by Richardson very slowly. And Abbe Prevost, let me see if I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, so Abbe Prevost was a reader of Richardson, and was a influence. He was a translator from Richardson into French, and had a substantial influence on Richardson's novels on French literature, which I feel like now, again, I'm reading these books and they're all kind of mentioning each other, and I'm just kind of going down this rabbit hole, and now I'm circling back to Clarissa, so I'm kind of happy about that. But Abbe Prevost, Manon Lescaut by Abbe Prevost, a dirty French novel. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and thank you, and take care.